once you mechanically practice what I'm going to teach you guys today, okay, eventually it's going to be on automatic. You won't have to say it anymore. Because the minute you go into, there's a trigger in this, so it's going to become a habit, okay? And it's not just a habit for Primerica. This is a great habit for your life. This is a great habit for your health. The technology I'm about to cover actually reverses aging. It's going to make you younger, okay? There's brain research that tells us that we increase the density of the brain. You're going to find that if you use this, you're going to get out of bed more motivated. You're organically going to attract people. And I'm going to explain to you why all of that happens. So first thing I wanted to go over is and some of you know this, but just to review, I want you to understand this is all based on neuroscience and different parts of the brain and how to get the brain to work more efficiently. And this is a terrible brain I'm drawing. But anyway, the key parts of the brain when you're looking at having a life that you love is going to be your primitive brain or your mammalian brain, primitive, and your frontal lobe, which is the advanced, right? So your frontal lobe. And as I spoke with successful people, millionaires in the company, what I found is that people have connected those two parts. Most of the time, they're working against each other. Why? Because the primitive brain is just about survival. It's the part that you share with all animals. And we've talked about this, right? Now, human beings are the only creature on God's planet that actually has a frontal lobe. So you can imagine as humans evolved, we had the base of the brain. And later on, and that's what you can see, if you look at cavemen, historically, the brain got larger and larger over time. So you currently, believe it or not, have the largest brains that humans have ever had in development, okay? So, and the gift is this frontal lobe. Now, crazy thing, right? When we look at, this is so huge compared to this, but this is very, very, very dense. In fact, what happens is you get something in here, you see it, okay? And it goes into your primitive brain, and there actually is a place thoughts captive, Sylvia. Isn't that cool? And it is in the amygdala, okay? So you actually have a thought, a goal, something happens in here, it goes into here. Now, one of the things you need to know is this has limited working memory, even though it's really big in size. This one, though, is where you store everything is stored, okay? Good, bad, everything that someone's ever said to you is stored in there. Every bit of knowledge you ever could have acquired, right? Things that your teacher said in algebra and you didn't get it and you probably failed it on the test, but it's in here. And this is going to be important because when I show you how to connect, we're going to connect these two. And it's going to be through prospecting. It's going to be through sharing your story. When you connect these two, what happens is you're able to access all the intelligence in your subconscious. Most people haven't connected the goal setter and the goal getter. They have some really nice ideas, right? That'd be really cool. That if I could be a regional vice president, it'd be really cool to have a big team. It'd be really cool to help more families. Those are all things you might say intellectually. But your animal part, your primitive, visceral action center doesn't really care. So what gets your heart beating today? What does this part of your brain protect you? What does it equate to survival? Or what is the primitive brain today equate to death?
Embarrassment.
Yes, it totally is. It's about looking like a fool or looking bad. Failure, yes. That means I'm not good. And if I'm not good, I'm dying. This is really important that you guys know. It's called false fear, right? In psychology, it's death. That's the physical response that we get. And your biology doesn't want you to repeat or do anything again that's already caused you pain. Now, that's okay if you're not up to anything in your life. That means you stay in your comfort zone, only do what's been modeled to you. So if your parents are not vice presidents and business owners, then don't even think about it. If you don't know people that are millionaires, then don't think about you being a millionaire. Don't hang around with people that make 100,000 or more, because that's not where you fit in. And if you're okay with that, then this class isn't for you. And some people are, and that's okay. Gotta love them, right? And I love all people. But if you want anything more, and it's not just about money. If you want anything more, if you want to be all that you can be, and we're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Abraham Maslow said there's 5 basic human needs. And he said the highest need is self-actualization. And he says very few people ever become self-actualized. Now that you're learning a little bit about the brain, why do you think very few people ever really reach that highest need?
Because they're seeking, or they're aiming for.
Why do very few people reach it?
They don't let the primitive part of the brain overpower. Actually, they connect it.
They actually let the primitive part of the brain take over, so they never really achieve self-actualization. So he said that unless you have these basic needs met, you can't even consider self-actualization. So in other words, you need to have a stable income, right, before you can be self-actualized. I want you to consider, and my research is showing, and much research outside of me is showing, that those that go for self-actualization find love and connection and profit. And that's why the show that we have is called Its Purpose, Passion, and then Profit, in that order. But so what I'm proposing to you, and what neuroscience is now finding, and they're doing this at nursing homes, you guys. It's a form of logotherapy, what I'm using, okay? I didn't even know. I just know that people in the company in Primerica were like, Sunita, what do you do? How do you do that? And I thought about it, and then that's when I did after I thought about it, because Primerica people, when we were killing it, Raymond and I were speaking every function. I don't know if you guys remember, we were everywhere, right? And when they'd ask me, I realized what I did. I pursued self-actualization first. I pursued being me. And that gave me everything else. But what I'm also telling you is inside of here, inside your subconscious, are the desires of your heart. These are intellectual desires, okay? Things you should. And these are I gotta. It's in your primitive brain. I gotta have that.
So the primitive brain then has the power to hold you back or push you to where you want.
Make you unstoppable, yes, sir. And that's why so many people get stopped. They haven't taken their today's goal and connected it with their animal instinct. I'm telling you, this is your goal getter. They haven't connected it. But if you talk to successful people in anything, not just money, Anything. In a ministry, it's a primal thing. They look obsessed. You've heard that before. All they talk about is their project or their ministry or their business. You've seen this with people when they talk about their children or their grandchildren. Every other thing out of Marlene is her grandbaby. Great. She's obsessed. Right? She waited long. Now it's finally here. So you give her, every other conversation that you have with Marlene is going to be about her grandchild. Rightly so. That's the same power I'm talking about. Getting obsessed with your goals. Getting obsessed with being all that you can be. So it's normal, and Marlene gets edified. Oh, look, she's a doubting grandmother. How cool is that? Oh, great, that's normal. What's abnormal, what extraordinary success requires, is for you to be obsessed about your vision for your life. And for you to create it by design, which is what we're going to be talking about. So I wanted you to understand that when you start to pull things out of here, it's a choice that you're going to be making. That's why I also call this course Designing Your Life as a choice, right? So do you guys get that this is where the power is stored, the juice is stored? It's at the subconscious level, most of it. It's very primal. It's a visceral. It's also connected. Do you see how it's connected to your heart? This is more connected to your biology, so it's easier to get these guys to move. Someone once compared this to a company, and the executives sit on the top floor. But the workers, the ones moving the gears, are in the basement. And the executives shout orders. We need to do this today. And the guys in the basement, well, I don't know, we never did that. You think we should try it? It just seems like a lot of work. The executives are like, look, we have these performance requirements. We've got to meet these goals. What are you guys doing down there? They're like, yeah. So the guys in the basement, in this factory, right, in this company, are like, they're full of it. What are we going to do? We know how to keep this body going. We know how to keep this company going. We're going to do what we want to do. And the executives in the top floor, right, they're in the penthouse, they're making all these plans, goals, and dreams. And yet the people that have to execute, all the worker bees in your midbrain, are like, yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. I promise you that.
That's a great analogy. I love it.
Thank you. So what we've got to do is we've got to get these guys to talk. Now, because the energy is in here, the passion is in here, it's in your past. It is a memory. What really matters to you was an experience that you had that left an imprint on you, literally left an imprint in your neurology. It actually looks like a network of neurons that are very well connected together. And if we look at and we magnify a neuron, right, you're going to see that this memory is very, very deep. It may not be at the level of your awareness. But not only is it very thick, now the reason it's very thick is because you've thought it so many times. You actually reviewed it so many times. You may not be aware of it now because your limited working memory has thrown it into long-term storage. But the other thing you want to know is that because this one's been run so many times, it's got a bunch of other thoughts related to it. and around it there are limiting beliefs also. So this thing is deep, right? It's really connected. Now, what's really cool too, in a good way, is that when I look at values and I look at Jason's values, you're going to find they come from the imprint. They come from his past. Like his value for freedom, his value for treating a woman a right way, being gentle. Those are coming from this very intense imprinted experience. So we can look, let's do that first exercise today. I want you to do a value ladder. Some of you have done this before, so get a piece of paper. And because we're video recording, I want you guys to still participate. Thank you, Marlene, for participating. You can still talk. I know y'all like, oh my God, she's recording.
Shanika,
Yes, ma'am.
there was something that you just said that we heard this weekend, and is exactly what you were talking about obsession. Bill Arendra this weekend said, this came straight from Art. He said, I want to be someone so bad that it borders on obsession. And I was like, whoa. When
Yeah.
you said that, it brought that right back.
Guys, I'm not kidding. Primerica led my research. I would listen to Art. And in fact, I'm hoping that I can get clips of Art for this. But I was listening to Art and I would go research it. I would go look at the brain and I would go look at what other successful people in GE or big companies, what their CEOs were saying. Spot on. It's a common denominator. There's several things that are common denominator between all high achievers, but it also applies in ministries. The same things you'll hear from Joel Osteen, right? Or anyone else that's a movement. See, guys, what I'm talking to you about is a movement. You being the movement. You leading a movement. It has to do with Primerica, okay. It has to do with your family and changing some dysfunctionality in your family. But whenever you lead a movement, you've got to make choices consciously. You cannot run on default as the leader. The definition of the leader, you've got the vision, and people are following your vision. Even if it's a small team of people, or it's a small family, or a small church, you've got to have the vision first. So this is about willing to be a leader and how leaders do it. And I'm going to show you. And you know what? Okay, let me put it this way. Let's say, Cindy, I don't want to be a leader. That's scary. I don't know, I don't know if I'm good enough. Here's what I'm going to tell you. If you don't take a risk and lead in something, maybe it'll be when you're 70 years old and you're 78 years old and you're in a nursing home, but you got to lead. You've got to take a chance because this is what reverses aging and it's good for your health. So what I want you to know is you're wired for this. I'm not going to show you something that is actually against your biology. It's your true nature. However, what I am going to do is I'm going to take your wiring off something that's happening by default, and I'm going to ask you to start to choose what you get obsessed about. You were created to be a creator. The brain has you wired right now. The biology of you has you wired to absorb what people are telling you, what media is telling you. Oh, that's who I am. Who I am is what this is, right? Like what's around me. And today, I'm asking you to create who you are as a choice. Not from what you've been told. Super exciting what's happening in quantum physics right now. So I'm also telling you something that agrees with all the fields of science, biology, chemistry, quantum physics. When I say money is important, what comes to your mind? Write that here. Most people will say, what's a common answer?
Freedom.
Freedom. What else? Family. Okay. Most people will say some version of security, safety, like I can buy stuff, I can feed myself. Okay. So I want to coach with someone who wants to go through this exercise. I promise this one's a mild one. Do you remember that time then? It seems like you've done some self-reflection already. So you remember the time when you didn't feel whole?
Yes.
Okay. About how old were you?
I was 8.
Okay. Remember when I talked about that imprint? Okay. His is about 8 years old. Actually, I want to tell you, it started earlier, but 8 is a good place. Okay. Most of your values and your personality is hardwired for sure. Actually, by the age of 2, maybe by 5, but by 5 you're pretty hardwired. 98% of your personality is in place. The 2% adds a little bit later on. But so that 8-year-old experience is probably attached to that core. So what I'm telling you is, you see how his life experience is reflected in his values. So when we talk about self-expression and being all that Jason can be, it's in here in his life experience and it's in his values. This is who Jason is. All of you have had life experiences. And I don't believe that life happens to you, it happens for you. But even if you don't want to believe that, if I cut Jason's brain open, and if I cut him open, who is Jason? Isn't he his values and his experiences? That's who he is. You can't argue with that, can you? Well, you can say, well, it's in his DNA. Jason is what's in his DNA. Well, that's experiences and its values. So what we're talking about is who are you, and using that to create your movement, to create your action, to access this energy. It's an energy. And it's amazing. It's just like when you're on this thing, what happens is when he's accessing that 8-year-old experience and the values that are tied around it, he's heating up this part of the brain. And this is the base. So if you've ever cooked outside, you have to heat the bottom and then the whole thing catches. Did you ever notice that? You have to heat the coals. If the coals on the bottom are cold, or if the wood on the bottom is cold, and you heat the top, it'll die. You'll never get the fire to go. Anyone who's a fire starter, cooker, am I right? So here's a pile of wood. If you just heat the top, it won't last. Am I right? So you have to heat the bottom, make sure they're warm, and then eventually you get heat all the way. So when he uses these life experiences, which tap into values, he's going to be able to ignite the entire brain. And you're going to be able to access intelligence, information that was stored and unavailable to you previously. And I'm asking you to use it as your superpower because it's using you now. And if you think about the analogy I gave about the executives in the penthouse, right? So what the executives are doing is they're asking the worker bees, okay, let's talk. What do we need to do to get this human being fired up? So the executives, with all the goals and the predictions and performance requirements, are saying, okay, what matters to you, midbrain? And let's use that as our mantra. So what we're creating is your individual mantra. And we're getting the entire brain to work. And there's a state of harmony and euphoria that you will experience.
What I got out of today's training with Sunita is that I matter. And because I matter, I can help other people remember that they matter. And it'll help me build a phenomenal business in Primerica. Because what we do is we help people remember that they matter and they deserve everything that God's promised us.
I've never been a great prospector, all right? And I believe in what we do. I believe in the crusade. But I think one of the main things I got out of this session is that it's never too late. You know, for us, for our primitive side of the brain to kick in and help us go get it.
Well, I believe prospecting is all about connecting people to an opportunity of hope. So that's what I look for. So if I can connect people to an opportunity of hope and they can see the vision, they can, do whatever it is that they were created to be as well. Your past is what's basically made you who you are, and it's the energy that from your past experience that can impact other people. But also I know that if I can just line up my primitive with my frontal lobe, because my frontal lobe tells me a lot of things that don't happen. So if I can line those up, I can be all I'm created to be.
Fear most is talking. I'm always afraid, how do people perceive me, or what do they think of me? And so today I learned to take my memory, which caused that, and just throw it away. It doesn't mean anything. I am smart enough. I am good enough. So this is gonna allow me to help grow my business so I can prospect and talk to people. And I am good enough to talk to people. And I am good enough to connect and build relationships.
So what I did learn, and I'm really grateful for, is not just the past, but utilizing our feelings, our emotions, and not allowing it to use us. Being able to productively change it and utilize it, and not allowing it to consume. That's what I learned today.
What I got today from today's training was that your past makes up who you are. You don't have to shut it off and throw away the key. Open it up, let it out, and use it to help you achieve your goals and your dreams. And what better way than to go out and build a business?